Hello all, welcome. We're excited for our first TCLAS deep dive webinar today surrounding strategic planning. We'll give everyone another minute or so to join the space. But as you are joining right now, feel free to type into the chat your name and LEA that you are coming from today, and we'll get started in just a minute. Wonderful. So see a bunch of people here, Spring, Pampa, RGC, Kiddo Mills, ISD, welcome. We're excited to have you here today. Cool. Right, Angleton, Richardson ISD, again, wonderful to see everyone. We will get started here in just a moment as we continue having a good crowd stream into today's webinar. All right, well, we want to respect your time today, so we will go ahead and get started on this first TCLAS deep dive webinar with strategic planning. Here we go. So excited to welcome you from the Resilient School Support Program team. I'm Teresa Spiewak, the Director of Resilient School Strategy, joined here today by Megha Kansra, Director of System Support and Innovation, our District Support Specialist, Patricia Salgado and Tori Lee, and our Research and Operations Specialist, Jennifer Williams. You're more than welcome at any time. We provided our emails here to reach out if you have questions regarding TCLAS Decision 1, Resilient School Support Program. Our team is here to support you and your LEA through this process. And so about our agenda today, we'll first go through a very high-level overview of what is TCLAS. We'll then go into Decision 1A and 1B point deep dive, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So a couple of things to be aware of. Feel free to enter into the Q&A box throughout the webinar. Any questions that you'll have, we'll either answer them within that box or we will answer them at the end. We will also make sure we follow up today with all of the slides in the recording, and all of these materials will be posted on the TEA website. So to first dig into what is TCLAS, I'm sure many of you have joined the previous webinars going over the TCLAS overview. So TCLAS is a set of targeted supports for additional state support regarding learning acceleration framework. And so we know that the past 18 months have been very challenging as we've all experienced COVID disruptions. And so TCLAS is providing support with learning acceleration as we think about COVID recovery and learning acceleration. Through this process, we're hoping that you find the funding and the supports to be very streamlined and mimic a very simplified formula grant. So it's a discretionary, non-competitive grant where you will not be required to do narrative responses. You will not need to do grant writing. And we also provide easy budget calculations. So again, to make this as simplified for our districts as possible. Part of TCLAS is that we'll be providing district access to $1.4 billion in services and funds to support districts across the state. There are 15 TEA initiatives that will provide that customized learning acceleration support. And we will be providing access to funding to, again, all in efforts to accelerate learning for the students across the state. And so part of the TCLAS learning acceleration strategies, as you can see, we today are focusing in on strategic planning. And so part of that support is through the Resilient School Support process, as well as a new updated part of the Data Fellowship. So we'll be providing strategic planning and performance management for you to prioritize, launch, and continuously improve upon your learning acceleration strategies. Also a part of TCLAS are the instructional materials, so having access to rigorous high quality materials, having access to teacher pipelines that support teachers to deliver excellence in the classroom and going for more than 1 year's growth in 1 year. More time, and so thinking about expanding instructional time in the summer, as well as targeted tutoring, as well as innovative school models to incorporate all aspects of the learning acceleration framework. And so through this process, you will have 10 decision points to make through TCLAS. And so again, today we'll be focusing on this deep dive into decision 1, LEA Accelerated Learning Strategic Planning through the Resilient School Support Program. And so now we will get into more about what the RSSP will provide as a part of TCLAS for the next school years. And so in RSSP, we are really anchored to one goal. We will support students to accelerate learning in supportive learning environments that are ultimately reflected in improved assessment outcomes. How we do this is by giving to different districts very customized one-on-one coaching and supports. And so what that looks like is each district gets to prioritize the learning acceleration strategies using data and stakeholder input for COVID recovery and learning acceleration. You'll develop your district-wide strategic learning acceleration plans that will incorporate teacher and leadership development, operations, academic strategy, whatever may be needed as you think about your greatest needs for the next 3 years. We'll provide that ongoing project, stakeholder, and change management support. And again, that can look across many learning acceleration strategies or take upon a whole district-wide approach in performance management. We'll continue to run data-driven continuous improvement cycles to continue to learn and iterate over the courses of the next school years, continuously improving throughout the process. We also have what we consider one of our fan favorites from our past and current RSSP districts are these opt-in campus level implementation supports, cohort cross-cohort learning opportunities, as well as opportunities for you to connect and network with each other to learn more about what you find to be effective as you're doing learning acceleration. So part of this process with the Resilient School Support Program is that you will be partnered with one of our approved technical assistance providers. I do want to note on this slide here, this is a list of our current school year 21-22 matched partners. We will be doing a procurement process for partners to apply and be approved for school years 22-23 and school years 23-24. So just want to make sure that note that these are our current match providers and that we cannot guarantee a particular provider due to the procurement process. However, your voice, your past experiences, your relationships are important to us. And when we get to that point in the process, we will be asking for your input on what you believe the best match for a technical assistance provider would be. Your technical assistance provider, once matched with you, will provide that support throughout the entire process and the year-by-year progressions throughout the program. And so part of RSSP is that we'll operate in 2 parts. The first part is completing that district-wide COVID recovery and acceleration plan. Again, identifying your greatest needs and having the strategic plan in place in order to accelerate student learning. And then from there, going into that continuous improvement support. And so figuring out what is working that you're ready to scale up and the things that may need to be shifted or adjusted to continue making increased impact. And so part of this part 1 support, your technical assistance providers will support you through the strategic planning for COVID recovery. You'll first go into analyzing data and understanding needs. You'll establish your learning acceleration task force at your district. You will analyze student data, get stakeholder information to identify the needs. So this can look anywhere from doing surveys with students, families, staff, as well as doing focus groups, aggregating your data to really understand what subpopulations, what grade levels, what content areas need the greatest support when you think about COVID recovery. You'll then from there make key decisions. What are the prioritized grade levels, content areas, and student groups that you need to really put a lot of focus on to have that COVID recovery and learning acceleration that have been impacted most by COVID? You'll then also match using that data, what is the best learning acceleration strategy that aligns to that need and ultimately will deliver that learning acceleration for those groups of students. From there, we know that you need support in identifying those short-term actions. What are the next steps that you need to take throughout the spring, throughout the summer to make this plan come to life, whether it be support in making changes to staffing, your schedules, curriculum changes, whatever it may need to be done in order to operationalize your strategic plan. We also know that many of you are involved in different initiatives, and even through TCLAS, you have the opportunity to sign up for more initiatives and programs aligned to learning acceleration. So it's key for us throughout each part of this process to really think about how your priorities and your selected strategies are cohering and aligning towards your greater North Star as a district and your vision and your mission. So ultimately, you're working in coherence across your campuses and district. And ultimately, again, going back to your community, sharing your plan for stakeholder input, getting board investment and others, so that way they're aware of the steps that you're taking to recover from COVID and accelerate student learning. From there, shifting into part two, where you then take more actions towards your plan and operationalizing it. We're excited to be able to offer an option for the Select RSSP TA support focus. So one of those supports could include, if you've opted into many different programs, initiatives, you may be utilizing your own ESSER funds to do some strategies as well, utilizing the RSSP technical assistance support for high-level district performance management. And so tracking the project across multiple strategies, multiple programs and initiatives to, again, make sure that you're moving towards your greater STAR and accelerating student growth. Or another option is that you can opt into getting technical assistance support, where you get direct to campus support for up to 5 campuses that are focused on a prioritized learning acceleration strategy. So for instance, if you have 5 campuses that you would like to pilot just-in-time intervention and would like to start with a pilot at your K-5 campuses and scale up throughout the RSSP process, that too is an option you get to make in the Select RSSP TA support focused. From there, you'll build your implementation plan. That includes identifying your goals, and definitely including your goals for student outcomes. We know at the end of the day, our mission is to accelerate student learning and thus tracking the student progress throughout the year to ensure that they are having that accelerated learning and are seeing growth throughout the way. That implementation plan will identify the tasks, the owners, the timeline, everything that needs to be done, again, to make that plan come to life. You'll engage in summer setup support. So understanding what are your professional development needs, what training do you need for your teachers, your leaders, your staff to be able to engage in the learning acceleration strategies come day one of the school year. You'll create short-term goals and implementation plans. And then from there, you'll implement with 3 cycles of continuous improvement, all the while continuing to build teacher and leader capacity, collecting data, monitoring progress that results in improvement reviews where you reflect upon the progress and draft new short-term goals and plans. So again, really embodying the continuous improvement spirit that we know that the improvements, the learning acceleration will not take place overnight, but rather gradual progress that continues to lead towards that North Star. Another piece that we know is very important to districts across the state is having alignment to the Effective Schools framework. And so the Resilient School Support Program has done its part in making sure that each phase of our work is aligned to the ESF. And so while most of our work does incorporate levers 4 and lever 5 with the instruction, it does not mean that we don't necessarily take into consideration the other levers. We see those as a lot of the key enablers in order to do the work for learning acceleration. And so in part 1, where you'll have a heavy focus on multiple levers, again, to make your strategic plan and be able to operationalize it. And then in part 2, continuing to get that support depending on the different strategies that you select to continuously improve. In the Resilient School Support Program, we have our learning acceleration framework that is aligned to our greater state framework. At the top are our foundational strategies. So the belief that first looking at your tier 1 instruction, your materials, ensuring that they're high quality, that they're prioritizing the TEKS, that you're having research-based instructional practices in the classroom. From there, once having really strong tier 1 instruction, looking into universal strategies. what are the additional strategies that could benefit all students and support them in the ways they need to accelerate their learning. And then looking into targeted strategies. We're really looking at different subpopulations and figuring out what they need specifically to accelerate their learning through COVID recovery. And so now we'll go into a little bit of what the LEA experience has looked like in years 1 and years 2 of RSSP. In year 1 of RSSP, this past school year, we supported 50+ LEAs in continuous improvement of remote learning, knowing in the winter that we were shifting to learning acceleration and that our districts needed more support with learning acceleration. Starting in April, we launched year 2 of the Resilient School Support Program, where we're currently supporting 75+ LEAs with continuous improvement of learning acceleration. An example coming out of year 1 that aligns with learning acceleration is a case study from Promise Community Schools. So Promise Community Schools was partnered with Bellwether, where in their strategic planning, they identified that they needed support and interventions for students. And so they identified their strategy being creating a system for tier 1 just-in-time interventions, meaning that being able to prioritize grade level content in tier 1 instruction, providing that just-in-time access to the prerequisite skills and knowledge needed for students to continue to master the on-grade level content. Part of that theory of action, which is one of those options that we just covered when you get into part 2 of the RSSP support. So they decided to do direct-to-campus support. So first, shrinking the change, identifying the campus that they wanted to start the pilot with, the grade level, the content area. That way, able to do the cycles of improvement quicker, collect data, and thus figure out how to scale up effectively and efficiently across the network. This culminated into their improvement review. And as you can see at the top, some examples of what their goals looked like, not only having students and the teacher participate in the pilot, but also setting those student outcomes goals, such as 60% will score at least 70% on the post-intervention assessment, as well as exit tickets and the end of unit assessment. Below are actual slide examples from their improvement review, looking at the data that ultimately helped them understand that they were able to implement the just-in-time intervention strategy, and that although they hadn't hit their student outcomes just yet, they were seeing that between the diagnostic and the end of unit 5 and end of unit 6, that there was a decrease in students not mastering and an increase in students mastering and meeting the content, which then led to the next cycle of understanding how to make some small shifts in the schedule to be able to provide additional just-in-time intervention for those students. So just an example of what the support can look like in Resilient School Support and what you could do with your technical assistance provider as part of the program. An additional piece that we've heard from our year 1 LEAs is that they've overwhelmingly enjoyed the support. And so 95% agreed that the coaching meetings that they have with their technical assistance provider is time well spent, that they saw progress in at least one area of focus. And again, the cross-cohort learning opportunities they found to be insightful, and that they were able to take back their strategies and implement them and bring them into classrooms, into campuses, and district-wide. Moving into year 2 of RSSP, which launched in April, we're now supporting 75+ districts across the state, and very excited to be able to support a very diverse group of districts, being smaller districts, rural districts, urban districts, larger districts, those who might have a network spread across the state. A lot of our work is very tailored and customized to exactly what that district needs, and therefore the experience can look very different depending on what your greatest needs are. Some early data from our cohort right now. So they are currently wrapping up part 1 of RSSP in the process of finishing their stakeholder plans, presenting to their board for feedback, and figuring out what learning acceleration strategies they want to prioritize. As you can see from our early data, majority of our districts are focusing in on grades 3 through 8, almost a 50-50 split between RLA and math, and majority focusing on those foundational learning acceleration strategies. So again, just some examples of what it could look like in the RSSP support for learning acceleration. Another piece that we're well aware of, and especially knowing TCLAS coming up with the application becoming live in a week now, is that our districts are very involved in many other TEA initiatives, as well as initiatives outside of TEA. So it's very important for us to connect with other programs and initiatives, to have that coherence and alignment. So again, the support is all going in the greater direction of the district. And this is something we continue to keep at top of mind as we think about those who are applying for multiple programs and initiatives in the TCLAS application. We also know in Resilient School Support Program that part of that continuous improvement cycle is first designing, going into implementation, measuring the progress, taking what we've learned to redesign and continually be more and more effective. Another piece that we're excited to add on into TCLAS for the coming years is providing a direct to LEA grant to fund a full-time data fellow. So knowing that continuous improvement cycle, data really drives that cycle to know what is being effective, what needs to be shifted, what is ready to be scaled up and approved upon. And so this data fellow will have grant funds, whether it's payroll, stipends, or other allowable costs, so that you can have this central data fellow to really guide through the improvement cycle process. They will receive professional learning and support through our Data Fellow PLC. So they will have the support to build out data systems, dashboards, data protocols that will ultimately help support your district in the continuous improvement of your learning acceleration plan. So that data fellow, again, will be each phase of the RSSP journey, helping to collect, analyze, and utilize data to really support your learning acceleration and continuous improvement. And so next steps from here, you need to make a few key commitments if you are interested in joining the Resilient School Support Program. So the first being that you'll commit to implementing the improvement plans and the learning acceleration plans that you create with your technical assistance provider. There will be some network events, so attending a launch webinar. You'll have weekly to bi-weekly meetings with your technical assistance provider. This can look, again, very customized by each LEA. Some of our LEAs prefer that weekly coaching call, some prefer bi-weekly, some have just their RSSP lead join every other week, some have greater, larger teams join to collaborate. So again, whatever best meets your needs. Making sure that you're continuously bringing in additionals for collaboration. And so ensuring that your stakeholders, your teachers, your principals, campus leaders are also involved in this work as well every few weeks. And then in the improvement reviews, you commit to participating in those 3 times across the year. We do TEA progress check-ins. So once every 1 to 2 months, a member of our team just does a quick call with your lead or others from your team, just wanting to know what's working well for you in this program, any feedback you have for the program, feedback you have for your technical assistance provider. Again, we try to embody the continuous improvement spirit ourselves as a program, so we're always interested in receiving your feedback and how we can better support you throughout the RSSP. And again, if you choose to opt into those campus level supports, just committing to standing those up as you plan for them. Additional commitments is designating your learning acceleration team. So your senior project sponsor being someone who is really able to clear some of those hurdles, give the approval needed for major decisions across the district and network. Your RSSP lead will be your primary contact for both the technical assistance provider as well as the RSSP team. Your curriculum and instruction lead, a diverse learner lead, a data lead, which could also be the data fellow if you choose to opt into that support as well. And then we recommend including a few focal school leaders. Again, just very important to have multiple stakeholders at the table to help inform decisions and understand how the progress is working on the ground. Others that have found to be very helpful on their team is a technology lead and teacher advisory group. For those of you who may have a smaller staff, you're more than welcome to have someone double up on roles. It does not need to be a different person for each role. We understand that your RSSP lead may be the same as your curriculum and instruction lead, so on and so forth. So you're more than welcome to have people wear multiple hats on this team. In addition to the team, Just having the commitment to collaborate with your technical assistance provider and the TEA. None of this information that we gather is for accountability purposes, but rather just to monitor progress, assess program impact, figure out ways to continuously better support you in achieving learning acceleration and impact. So we and your TA partners may ask to join classroom or internal meetings, request specific data, utilize different tools, training, and resources that you've found to be effective. We would do all of this with your upfront permission and anything that you feel comfortable with sharing. Again, never for accountability purposes, but always in the spirit of continuous improvement, both to better support you and for us to better become a program that can customize its support for all of its LEAs. The key commitments for the data fellows, and so they need to commit to delivering the data, tools, systems, and protocols that will be provided within the fellowship's professional learning community. They will also have network events and supports to attend, so they will be attending some of the team collaboration meetings, making sure that they're a part of the RSSP learning acceleration work to be able to support it. They will have a launch webinar, their own PLC trainings from bi-weekly to monthly, may start more frequently, and as time moves forward, it may move to more monthly as needed. They will also need to participate and help support with the improvement reviews, and they too will also do individual check-ins, again, just to better learn about what support is going well and how we can better support them as they support your district in continuous improvement of learning acceleration. And so a timeline of what the RSSP support would look like for strategic planning and data fellowships. And so the RSSP support, if you are opting into only the RSSP strategic planning support and you are not a current RSSP LEA, we are aiming for a March 2022 start. Please note, supports and timing may evolve. It may begin as soon as January, depending on the needs and interest of those who apply to the TCLAS process for RSSP. Another option is that you can go ahead and sign up for school years 22-23 and 23-24 at the same time. The data fellow funding will actually start in January, knowing that you may need some time to do hiring and onboarding for that data fellow before you kick off the rest of your RSSP support. And so a resource that's been provided to everyone for TCLAS is the guidance document. I'll quickly go through some of the different pieces from the guidance document as well as the upcoming application. So that way you're able to make informed decisions when completing the application. So any information that you want to refer to as you're completing the application or thinking about if the strategic planning support through RSSP is a good decision for your LEA, please feel free to refer back to this guidance document that provides the description, additional considerations. We'll give you different decision points to think through with your team. There's a grant calculator that will help you understand the monetary amount that you'll be getting in-kind services from the program. You'll also see the grant requirements and assurance that we just went through, as well as any other required grant application information. So all of this is located in one easy document, but also feel free to reach out to our team at any time. The first decision you'll make within the application is selecting the school years to receive the strategic planning support. So if you are not currently participating in the Resilient School Support Program, you can sign up for next school year 22-23 only. You can sign up for next school year and school year 23-24, or you can sign up for school year 23-24 only. If you are a current RSSP LEA that's participating in school year 21-22 right now, you can sign up for school year 22-23 only, or you can go ahead and sign up for next school year as well as school year 23 and 24 as well. In regards to decision 1B, so selecting school years to receive the data fellow grant, if you're not a current RSSP LEA, you can go ahead and, very similar to before, sign up for next school year, the next 2 school years, or school year 23-24 only. If you are currently an RSSP LEA, you can go ahead and sign up for next school year only, or again, sign up for both school years. I do want to note, though, that in order to do the Data Fellow grant, you must also sign up for Resilient School Support Program. So in order to have that Data Fellow, you need to participate in RSSP and select school years for 1A, and your school years need to match with your Data Fellow grant, or if you only want to do 1 year of the Data Fellow grant, that works as well. So some additional upcoming TCLAS support opportunities. The application will go live on the 19th and will close on August 20th. The preliminary award amount notifications begin on September 10th. And the final grant tentative date is December 1st, 2021. Knowing that many of you may want to get board pre-approval, gives you some time to be able to get that pre-approval and utilize some of the funds before that final grant negotiation process, to be able to retroactively have funds available. I do want to note for RSSP, because our supports do not begin till the earliest at January 2022, it is not necessary to get board pre-approval. Additional things coming up with the TCLAS application timeline. If you did not have access to the overview webinar, we're not able to attend, on our TCLAS webpage, you're able to access the recording, the documents, everything that's been shared today. We'll continue to have the decision point specific webinars throughout this week. And there'll be upcoming office hours that you can begin registering for on the TCLAS webpage. So each initiative will have a breakout room to be able to answer questions and talk with districts as you're filling out the application. And so now we'll move into last 15 minutes, having some time for Q&A. And so feel free to drop into the chat any questions that you have, and we'll begin answering any questions that we have.
Perfect. And I know we've had a lively Q&A going already. So thank you all of you for your questions. We answered a number of them, just sort of typing in the answer. But there were a few recurring questions. Teresa, I'm just going to pitch them to you from this group. One question asks about how RSSP works with the CRMSI curriculum. Also asks about, after school grants, like the 21st Century Grant. And I wonder if there's even a bigger question there about the intersections between RSSP and just other programs that provide learning acceleration support. So I wonder if you could speak to that just a little bit.
Absolutely. And so that is a great question. Coherence is very important to us in this program, knowing that both options, that whether you're doing high level district management, performance management across multiple initiatives and programs, really important for our technical assistance providers, our program, to really know what is your district involved in, what are your goals, what are the actions you're taking across the district and campus to ensure that any decisions that you make, any actions that you take within the Resilient School Support Program is aligned in the same direction as all other programs and initiatives, and not something that is pulling you into a different direction. And so what that can look like in practice and in action, you will get to know your technical assistance providers very well, our team very well, discuss the different things you have taking place, and ensuring that we have the conversations that if you do decide to do just-in-time intervention and you're also participating in CRMSI, what are the assurances that you needed to provide to CRMSI? How can we ensure that the coaching you receive in RSSP is allowing you to meet everything needed to be able to adopt and implement that curriculum with fidelity, but also receive that supplemental support through RSSP for you to be able to have learning acceleration and do just-in-time intervention in addition to doing something such as CRMSI and adopting an HQIM. Similarly to the 21st Century Grant, really making sure that our providers and our program understand what are you hoping for in your vision as a district, how does that align to your overall learning acceleration plan, and how do we ensure that your strategic plan and everything that's operationalized, again, is pulling in the same direction, and that your staff, your campuses, your district don't feel like you're going in multiple directions, but rather see how everything plays together towards the greater good of student acceleration.
Great. And then we have a couple of questions related to the data fellow role. One is just wanting to clarify the terms of funding for that role. So I know you mentioned this, but this came up a few times in the Q&A. And then a second question here is just whether the data fellow can be a current employee or whether it needs to be a newly hired individual. And then there's a follow-up question there about support for recruitment of strong candidates, whether there's any central support that might be provided there.
Again, fantastic questions, and something that we really pride ourselves in the program is something that we started hearing as we floated the idea to get feedback from our current LEAs, was that they're very interested in a data fellow, however, may need support in identifying if it works best to have someone in-house who can be that fellow position, or if they need support in recruiting outside of it. So something that we are looking into right now as part of that professional learning cohort is being able to provide that differentiation. And so connecting you to potentially different networks across the state that may have people that you can access to provide as a data fellow for more of that short-term support to really build up the systems and structures and build your internal capacity, or also providing the flexibility that if you do have people in-house that you feel would be best positioned to take on the data fellow work, how the grant funding works and how the monetary works is that it needs to go towards whether it be payroll, a stipend for that position, anything related to that position. It cannot necessarily be spent on anything beyond a data fellow scope and sequence and what their role would really entail.
A related question, will LEAs be able to access some of the supports available even if they do not elect to participate in RSSP or data fellow support? I'm not sure if this question is asking exactly this, but there was another similar question. So I'll answer one piece of it and then toss the rest of it to you, Teresa. I think I heard a question of, is it required to sign up for strategic planning supports in order to access other TCLAS supports? And I want to be clear that you do not have to sign up for or apply for the TCLAS strategic planning supports or RSSP in order to access any of the supports provided through the other decision points. So decision points 2 through 10, for example, within TCLAS. So you could, for example, choose not to apply for the strategic planning supports here and just apply for, say, the summer program support or the tutoring supports in decision 6. So that is possible. But I wonder, Teresa, if you could also speak to, I think the other question I'm hearing here of just whether data fellow support and RSSP support go together.
Yes, and so in order to access the data fellow support, you do need to select yes to the RSSP strategic planning support. It is a requirement in order to have that data fellow be supported through the continuous cycles of improvement and be able to get the fullest from that professional learning cohort opportunity. Another piece here to note, I saw it pop up in the questions as well, is that people can have access to some of the strategic planning or data fellow resources, even if they do not sign up. And so while we highly encourage you to participate in the program and the supports with it, what we've committed to as a program is when we find things that are particularly effective or demonstrate a great need across the state, making sure that we share any resources that we find to be highly effective and making sure that others have access to them.
Great. And then did get a question here about, will this be the only school year? And I'm guessing this means, is this the only chance or opportunity to sign up for school year 2023-24? Or will it be possible to apply later for later school year next year? And this is, the opportunity right now. We are putting out one application here for TCLAS. So this is the opportunity to sign up for school year 23-24. Teresa, is there anything to add there?
Yeah, so the other piece I would recommend is that if you are on the fence between signing up for just 1 year or thinking about 2 years, knowing that this is the opportunity and is tied to the $1.4 billion, could not necessarily guarantee that if you only signed up for school year 23 or 22-23 and then decided at the end of that year that you wanted to do additional year, could not guarantee that you could participate, knowing that this is the one application opportunity. So would recommend strongly considering signing up for 2 school years. In that case, you are able to secure your position and the funds to have the support for 2 years.
And then I'm seeing a question here as well on how technical assistance provider matching will work. I think the exact question is, will we be able to select our technical assistance provider? Will we, we will give you feedback on what we need and you will assign us a provider is sort of the phrasing of the question.
Great question. And so right now, cannot necessarily speak more to who those technical assistance providers would be or necessarily a timeline due to it going through procurement. However, your opinion is very important to us. We know that a lot of you have previous experience. And so when we do have our approved list for school years 22-23, 23-24, we'll absolutely give districts an opportunity to provide some input in who they think would be the best match for them. Other factors that we take into consideration is thinking about the different initiatives, strategies, other things that you're participating in, which technical assistance provider has a background with that experience, has that expertise to really support you through all of them. And so it's really important that we also pair you with someone that you may have a relationship with, but also has the experience and expertise to give you the utmost high quality support possible.
And Teresa, you did answer this question further on in the webinar here, but it came up a few times. So just wanted to give folks another opportunity to hear it. When exactly would the supports begin? And just want to note, spring 2022 is the earliest the supports would begin. But Teresa, you may want to add to that here.
Great question. So right now, as you saw on the slides, we have a start for RSSP being as early as March 2022. Again, we're very interested in your input and your feedback. Some of the early input and feedback that we've had from those that we've solicited feedback from is that there may be a world in which a January or February start would be more beneficial. Again, we're always going to be responsive and flexible to what might meet the greatest needs of districts across the state. And so that's why we do have that asterisk at the bottom of the slides that say it may change. However, it would not begin before January, and then it would not, the latest it would start is in March. You would be kept up to date at every point along the way. And again, we always pride ourselves in being able to offer that flexibility and customization. And so if you have strong thoughts or opinions there, we welcome that you share them either today or as you're going through the process, so we can be better informed on how to really make this program meet your needs.
And I'm seeing a question from Nancy here that's more of a general TCLAS application question. The question is, what does the application look like? What information do we need to gather now to successfully complete the application once it opens on July 19th? That is a great question, Nancy. And I just love that you're thinking ahead about this and thinking about how to mobilize your team to get this done effectively. So we are working hard at the TEA to make sure this application is fairly streamlined and that you are essentially going into the application, you are selecting the supports that you would like to opt for across the 10 different decision points, and that you're also answering a number of prerequisite questions for some of these supports. So for example, for the strategic planning supports, the topic of this webinar, one of our prerequisite questions will be, are you already a part of the Resilient Schools Support Program? It just will help us understand exactly what questions we should be asking you farther into the application. Or for a different decision point, we might ask you questions, for example, about which campuses you want that particular support on. I think exactly what you're doing right now of attending this webinar and attending the webinars of any of the other decision points that you are interested in as a district, that's a great step to deeply understand the questions that you should be asking yourselves as a leadership team to be able to go into that application and kind of quickly fill out your interests and your needs across each of the decision points. So I'd recommend for any of those supports, join the webinar, and exactly as Teresa did today, you'll be hearing from a TEA team member who will describe exactly the questions you might reflect on to determine whether this is the right set of supports for you and to think through the questions you'll need to answer for the application.
And a great reoccurring resource is that guidance document. And it has discussion questions with your team, the different program information, assurances to consider. So a resource you can take away from each one of these webinars and utilize with your team as well.
See, I think we might have tackled a lot of the big questions here. I think I am seeing a question here from Cynthia. What is the maximum amount that can be awarded to a district? And Cynthia, I think again that guidance document gives a lot of good information about the breakout of both the dollar amounts equivalent to the in-kind services that are provided through the strategic planning supports and also the data fellow funds. Then it's a little bit dependent on the number of years of support you're seeking that'll determine sort of the amount that you might be awarded. Teresa, anything to add there?
The other piece, feel free to utilize the TCLAS calculator that's also on the website. When you go into the calculator, it's very similar to what the application will look like. You drop down each decision and it will let you know the anticipated monetary amount that goes along with each decision. The one piece I know Mega just touched upon it is with RSSP decision 1A, those will be in-kind services. So you will not receive a direct grant from that. We manage the money with the technical assistance providers to take that lift off of your shoulders. However, with the decision 1B, that is a direct to LEA grant for the data fellow. And again, depending on the number of years that you select, the grant calculator will help you determine how much money you will receive for that position if you choose to go that route as well. Wonderful. Well, I know we are at 12:46 now. Appreciate all of you joining today. You have both the TCLAS email on the screen if you have any general TCLAS questions, as well as the RSSP one. Also in the beginning, you have access to all of our emails. Please feel free to reach out. We're always happy to discuss any ways that we can support you in this process. We'll also be joining those office hours. We do ask that you take this really quick survey to see what your interests may be. And other than that, we appreciate your time today and look forward to seeing your applications soon.